Okay, Year 11, welcome to your video tutorial for 8.2.1, Understanding the Problem. This is the syllabus dot point we're going to look at today. We are going to look at performance requirements and specifications. So what we need to consider when meeting with the client first off is the functionality requirements, compatibility issues, performance issues, and boundaries. It's really important that when you first meet with a client and you talk about, what they need and what software system you're providing for them, that these are the things that you discuss. If you don't discuss all of these in detail, you'll end up painting yourself into a corner. So the first thing is the functionality requirements. So the first thing that you'll be often asked to, report back to the client in a document, or, the first thing you want to discuss is the list of functions the solution is trying to provide. So what is it that you're actually doing? These are usually a list, and they are usually measurable. So for your first assessment task, you'll notice that I've actually given you your 6 functionality requirements. They're actually listed in your task. You'll notice all of them are measurable. And they're things like calculates GST, by adding X amount to the final cost, or, calculates a sales price from a cost price. They're measurable. They're not things like has a pretty screen or is easy for the user to navigate. They're measurable things. What is the function of your system? What is it actually functioning to do? The next thing is compatibility issues. People often get this confused with performance issues, so I'll be really clear. If you are making a software system, you need to, and you've got a list of functionality requirements and you generally understand what the client needs, you have to, before you go into production, list for the clients any potential conflicts that your solution might have with existing hardware and software. So in that initial meeting, you need to understand from the client exactly what hardware and software they have. You could make the most amazing point of sale system, but if you rock up and it's only available on, Mac OS, and Frodo has Windows, it can be the greatest thing of all time, meet all the functionality requirements, but unless it's going to work on any existing hardware and software that Frodo has, it's not going to work. The same is for hardware. So if you need a particular input device to use the software and Frodo doesn't have it, you need to bring that up. Or any of the devices that you have, any of the hardware that you have is incompatible, you need to bring that up. The second one, and what people get confused with performance issues is, with compatibility issues, is performance issues. So, you also need to bring up any particular problems that the introduction of your system is possibly going to have. So once you understand from the client, what they're actually using, what hardware and software, you also need to think about, okay, not just what platform is it on, like Windows, Mac, not just what kind of hardware it is, but what's the age of the hardware that it's going on to? And if you try and load this brand new program onto it that you're creating, is that going to have an issue? So not only do you have to ask Frodo, for example, using assessment task 1, what hardware and software he's using. Okay, you work how to use Windows. It's very different, Frodo having a Surface Studio like we had in that lab when you visited Gilroy, versus Frodo having, a Windows XP machine from 1996. So it's really important that you go through that. Another big one, so that will be around hardware and response times. Another big one is if you wish to use any web type of applications or your software system requires a connection to the internet, understanding and identifying with the client at that initial meeting, well, what is your current connection? So that you can list for them before you start development, and when you go back to see them for the second time, okay, this is a potential problem, this is the issues you might have, just so the client's aware. Because you could make the most amazing system. It could have all the functionality requirements. It could be compatible with whatever hardware and software is there, but if it's going to run too slow, there's no point. And finally, the last thing that you need to make sure you discuss with the client at the initial meeting is the boundaries of the problem. You need to clearly define, what exactly it is you're delivering, but also you need to be very specific about what it is that you're not delivering. So you might be making beautiful UI that has potential to connect to a database, If the client assumes you're making the database and you don't talk about the boundaries at the start, you'll often get at the end, well, where's the database? And the developer sitting there going, I wasn't making a database. And the client goes, I thought you were making the database. So it's really important, you get the functionality requirements clear, you get the compatibility issues and the performance issues really clear, but also you clearly define for the client what you are and are not making. And that's it, guys. If you start there and they're the things you discuss with the client first, and you consider all of those things when you're understanding the problem, you will not paint yourself into a corner.